Fiction and reality. New stories, new ideas. Little Beth Entertainment.
Welcome to The Rocketry Show at TheRocketryShow.com. Episode 124. Are you really good to go to fulfill your full waiver? It's an eye-opening discussion, and The Rocketry Show will begin right after this.
The Rocketry Show thanks rocketeryforum.com for their support. This is Jim, and I've been a member for 9 years. The Rocketry Forum is a global community of rocketeers who openly discuss all aspects of hobby rocketry. If you have a question, hop on and ask. There are hundreds of experts who can answer just about any rocketry question you have. Check them out today at rocketeryforum.com.
Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running.
Welcome to The Rocketry Show.
All right, lift off and the clock is started. Yes, sir. Reading loud and clear.
A podcast that is all about advanced and high-power rocketry. Amateur-built rockets, starting at mid-power to higher-power versions that can reach the edges of space. This program is hosted by the team who love the smell of burning ammonium perchlorate in the morning. Here are CG, Gene, and model rocket guy, Jesse Yu.
Is your club really go to fulfill your FAA waiver fully? Well, that is a topic we're going to talk about because there's some things that have been, as the world is changing and lots of construction's been going on around a lot of our sites, we're finding that there's an issue as whether or not your waiver is really good or not. And there's a lot of things to think about. So you figure this will be a great educational topic to talk about. So we're welcoming onto the show Greg Young, who had an eye-opening experience learning a lot about this himself. So researching it. So welcome to the show, Greg.
Thanks, CG. Thanks, Jim. Glad to be here.
All right. And before we get started on this big topic, I want to just throw out a little invitation for you, Greg. Tell our audience a little bit about yourself.
I've been flying rockets actually since 1962, but I'm a BAR twice. I kind of got out of it around 69 when I went into college and then postgraduate and then residency and all the rest of it. And I got into it a second time when my girls, I have 3 daughters, were in fourth grade and fourth and then third. And so it was mid-'80s, and I got into it kind of heavy then, joined NARD, joined TRA at that time, and flew at Zaley and Opal, which is one of the TRA launches we had back then, and we had a good time. Get out of it again. My kids sort of lost interest, and my practice got very busy, and so I figured, well, that's it. Then the grandkids came along, and, here we go.
Yes.
Deja vu.
Yeah.
Got back into it, except this time, for some reason, it's stuck. So I was involved with several clubs, and I got high power certified and went up through L3. And then at one of the clubs, the folks that had had it for a while decided they'd have done it long enough. They wanted to kind of retire. So I got on the board of directors. And then the one individual that was holding the waiver asked if I'd take over the club's waiver. And I said, yeah, sure. What's it involved? This was back around 2016. So I became waiver holder at that time. And by de facto, since I was signing for the waiver and I knew I was assuming responsibilities, I sort of became the RSO for the club. And that's something, not to diverge a bit, but one thing I want to say, I hear people still at various launches I go to, they talk about RSOing a rocket. Well, guys, RSO is a range safety officer, and you don't RSO a rocket. You safety check a rocket, and then it comes out to the field, and the LCO will launch it. If there's any question on safety check, the RSO will have the final, say nay or yay as to whether or not that rocket can fly, based on a number of parameters.
Yes.
So the RSO's role is to ensure range safety, and he or she will work with the LCO, who can, obviously hold a flight or not launch a rocket. But range safety involves everything. It involves making sure people are behind a flight line, making sure there's no open fires, no smoking, anywhere near areas. making sure people are not arming their electronics under tents, because we've all seen that go off once or twice.
Yes.
So there's a lot involved in being RSO, but it fits in as waiver holder, so it kind of made sense.
Okay.
So things went along fine. We actually increased our waiver. FAA gave us a few thousand more feet at the club I was RSOing for back around 2016. So it looked good, and things were going along fine. Then over the last year, I noticed one of our flyers found a bed and breakfast close to the field. And I didn't know where it was, and I don't think many people knew it was even there. And he was staying there. And I said, I have an hour and a half drive home after dark at the end of the day. Maybe I'll stay a couple of nights. So give me the details. So in last December is like the 27th, I got a hold of him. And I learned that the people that own the bed and breakfast are actually the son and daughter-in-law of the landowner that has the whole field that gives us our authorization to use their field. I said, well, that's kind of neat. And he says, now, there's no food there. He says, it's a microwave and you've got a refrigerator. I said, yeah, it's like an apartment. He goes, yeah. I says, well, it makes sense to have no food there because obviously people don't live there. How are they going to do a breakfast? Yeah. He paused. He says, what do you mean people don't live there? I go, that's the old farmhouse. Nobody lives there. That's been abandoned. Yeah. He goes, Greg, the family still lives there. They've been living there. I said, are you sure? He goes, yeah. He says, because I was at the bed and breakfast. That's on the back side of their building, but they live in the front of the building. I said, okay, I got to go do something. Thank you. I'll get back to you. Click. I went to Google Earth because I knew I had you have that feeling in the pit of your stomach sometimes.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So I did a distance measurement between what I knew, where I knew the farmhouse was. You really can't see it from the field. It's behind some trees, but there's a separate roadway into it. And as it turned out, from that spot to the LCO was only 1,300 some odd feet. Oh. However, our high power pads were 110 feet farther. So it worked out to be almost 1,450 feet between the high power pads and the inhabited building. Unfortunately, we're in violation of the FAR. So now let me explain that to you. And I think I should explain it in two sections. First of all, rockets are classified, and I know most seasoned flyers know this, but I also know there may be people listening to your podcast that aren't seasoned flyers yet and maybe haven't ever flown anything, but they're interested. So if I can go over it, the first federal reg is FAR 101.22, and that defines Class 1, Class 2, and Class 3 rockets. Class 1 rocket is what we understand as a model rocket, and it has the standard requirements that you can have no more than 125 grams, which is about 4.4 ounces, of propellant in your rocket. The rocket has to be made of paper, wood, or a breakable plastic with no substantial metal parts, and it can't weigh more than 1,500 grams, which I think is about 52, 53 ounces. That includes the propellant, by the way.
Right.
That's Class 1. And you don't need waivers to fly Class 1 unless you're in a very special situation, but the average club would not have any problems with that. You can pretty much set those as long as you got landowners' permission and you have the adequate distances as far as distances between the rockets and the individuals and the field size you need to recover, which is in the NAR and the AAA safety codes. You don't need an FAA waiver.
So it's all basic model rocket stuff.
Correct. But now we get into Class 2. Class 2 is also an amateur rocket because everything's considered an amateur rocket. But unlike a model rocket, it's propelled by motors that have an impulse up to and including 40,900 Newton seconds, which is an O motor. So that's as far as a Class 2 can go, as far as you can go, whether it's experimental propellant or commercial. That's your limit for a Class 2 rocket.
And I think we should point out too that it starts at that motors that have the equivalent of an H motor as well. So whether it's a bunch of mid-power motors stacked together that equal an H motor or an actual H motor or whatever. Go. Yeah.
It's a pretty broad range.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So you're right. It's from H up to what we know as an O. And then above that is the advanced high power rocket, which is a class 3, which is something that are flown at certain fields. It's like Steve Eves' Saturn V was, and like Dan Michaels' full-scale Patriot's going to be. Those are the class 3, and those require special FAA waivers, as well as going through a class 3 committee, which is a group from Tripoli of seasoned flyers. So that requires a Tripoli prefecture to launch those.
Right.
So that's 101.22. So that's pretty straightforward. The next section is 101.23, and that's just the general operating limitations. And basically, it's pretty straightforward. It says you must operate an amateur rocket in a manner that is not launched into an orbital trajectory. Anything suborbital is okay, but you can't go into orbit. And when launched, you can't go into a territory of a foreign country unless there's some kind of agreement. It has to be unmanned. I know this sounds silly. Has to be unmanned. And then the last part of it does say the rocket cannot create a hazard to persons, property, or other aircraft. And then they conclude with the FAA saying the FAA may specify additional operating limitations necessary to ensure that air traffic is not adversely affected and public safety is not jeopardized. So those are the general sort of operations for class 2 and above rockets.
Okay.
Where we got into the issue at the club I'm dealing with, and by the way, there are a number of clubs now that have received letters. I actually got a call New Year's Day from the president of Tripoli questioning the issue of safety at the field that we fly out of. And I said, well, I'm your prefect, but I'm also the RSO and waiver holder. So I said, here's the background. I said, as it turns out, the bed and breakfast, which is relatively new, led us to learn that the people actually live there, and they're actually the relatives of the landowner that gave us permission to fly. And I said, I know that based on our distances and what you've been reviewing, and I knew something was different this year because every year we renew our prefecture, and I was the prefect, so we send in the usual form. This year, for 2023, they asked for a lot of the same things they asked for on the very initial application. They wanted a picture of the land. They wanted a ground shot of the launch area. They wanted, Google Earth images. So they were really looking at everything all over again. So I knew something was sort of brewing. So I wasn't totally surprised when I got the call. So I knew they were looking at launch sites. But I was surprised at the timing because literally I learned about the inhabited building 3 days earlier. So,
wow.
It was like, okay. So when I was talking to Tripoli, I said, look, okay, so we can easily move, to make the 1,500 foot. And I said, and with the other parameters I'm going to mention in a minute, that would allow us at least a 6,000 foot waiver, which was literally half of what we were using at the time. I said, my question is, on one of the requirements of 101.25, it does talk about inhabited dwellings being part of the operation. Is there any way there could be a waiver if the family, I said, in our case, the family owns the building, is the son and daughter-in-law from the owner of the land that gives us the permission to fly? And he said at that point, I need to check that with legal. We'll get back to you, but you can expect you'll be getting a letter along with a number of other prefectures probably in the next 6 weeks because we've been identifying new structures going up and we're concerned about potential impacts on this.
Okay. So
that was good. Let me read you now what 101.25 says so you'll have an understanding of why this issue came up and why I was as concerned as I was.
Sure.
Essentially, I'm just going to read it to you. When operating Class 2 high-power rockets or Class 3 advanced high-power rockets, you must comply with the general operating limitations in 101.23. That's the one I read, and we did that. In addition, you must not operate Class 2 or Class 3 rockets in the following conditions. And there's a total of about 8 of these. I'll read these. Some of these can be waived by the FAA when they give you the waiver, and I'm going to tell you which ones those are.
Okay.
Some of them they cannot waive. First one,
Okay.
you cannot fly at any altitude where clouds or obscuring phenomena cover more than half of the sky, 5/10 coverage.
Gotcha.
That is not waivable. You can't fly, that's A. B, you can't fly at any altitude where the horizontal visibility is less than 5 miles. That is not waivable.
Okay.
C, you cannot fly into any cloud. That is not waivable. D, between sunset and sunrise, you cannot fly high power unless you have prior authorization from the FAA. So they can waive and they can allow flights after dark in certain circumstances.
Okay.
We've never done that, but that can be done. E, you cannot fly within 9.26 kilometers, which works out to be about 5 nautical miles, of any airport boundary without prior authorization of the FAA. So again, they can waive that. We had way more than that, so we had no issues at all with that. And then F, you cannot fly in a controlled airspace, again, unless you have prior authorization from the FAA. So that also is waivable. Okay. Now you get into G, and this is where we ran into our issues. You cannot fly unless you observe the greater of the following separation distances from any person or property that is not associated with the operations.
Okay.
The first one is it's not less than 1/4 of your maximum expected altitude, or at a minimum, not less than 457 meters or 1,500 feet.
Okay.
So the issue of the 1,500 feet for the club I was RSO and waiver holder for could be easily met by moving 50 feet. That was not going to be an issue. That's taken care of. However, the waiver says 1/4 of the maximum altitude, and that that is you have to do the greater than. So, assuming we were at 1,500 feet, 1,500 times 4, the maximum waiver we could have at that particular field would be 6,000 feet.
6,000, right.
If we moved it out more, if we had 2,000 foot separation, that would give us a waiver of 8,000 feet and so forth.
Yep.
So you can move. But that includes not just inhabited dwellings, that includes streets and highways. That anything used by the public. And I got that when I talked to the FAA, which I'll get into in a minute.
Mm-hmm.
The other two issues in 101.25 requirements, I should say, is you can't fly unless a person at least 18 years old is present and is charged with ensuring the safety of the operation and has the final approval authority for initiating the high-power rocket flight. And in the minds of the FAA, that's not the club president, that's not the club prefect, it's not the club whatever, it is the waiver holder. That's in their mind.
Okay.
And then the final one is you can't fly unless the reasonable precautions are provided to report and control a fire caused by rocket activities. Now, I found out by talking to our previous waiver holder, I got a hold of him after all this came down, and he said when they first put in the waiver at the club I was dealing with, it was put in before the 101.25 was added. 101.25 was added from the NFPA, and it was slid into the FARs to make it, quote, neat. And that happened, he thinks, somewhere around 2006. I don't know that as a fact, so folks may know more on that issue. That's what he told me he was advised at the time. So don't take that to the bank, but that's he explained how it came to pass.
Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to do a quick break here for this show, and we're going to pick this up because we've got some things to go over that are left dangling. So we'll be right back after this. Yeah, on The Rocketry Show at TheRocketryShow.com. It's time for eRockets.biz. eRockets.biz is your home for unique model rocket kits as well as the world's largest selection of rocket parts from Semrock. They've been in business since 2009. eRockets.biz has a wide selection of your favorite kits, as well as their own versions of popular out-of-production models many of you have come to enjoy over the years. And Jesse, what did you find?
I found a lot of stuff, guys. When you go to the main page of eRockets.biz, they have a 40% off specials page now.
Nice.
And I probably spent a good amount of time here looking at this. How would you guys like a 31-inch Alien that you can just put in your front seat of your car? You can get those on sale right now for less than $8. It's crazy. The amount of tools and stuff that they have on eRockets right now. A glass cutting board. I mean, I want to get one of these just for the kitchen, but I mean, these are really cool. Tools and sanding sticks, knives. They have specials on X-Acto products right now, and they have epoxy spreaders and squeegees. They have super glue. They have sanding blocks. They do have rockets. A lot of you folks are familiar with custom rocket kits. If you do any low power rockets at all, you can get almost every custom rocket kit that they have right now for 40% off. It's crazy. There's at least 8 or 9 of them here. Chisels, sanding belts, so many tools, guys. It's just crazy. Taking a look at Estes, there's a lot of Estes rockets that they have on here. A couple of these are out of production that Estes doesn't even sell on their website anymore. eRockets has these on sale, guys, for 40% off. It's crazy. There's 7 Estes rockets kits, actually 8 that you can choose from. And, put those in your build pile. Put those in your fleet because out of production Estes kits, go for a lot of money after the fact, right? I mean, get these now while you can. That eRockets has them. Those XL monitor boxes that you see where you can, put different things in there and cut everything at the specific angles. They have those for under $11 right now. Just crazy amount of tools, guys. But I think I'm looking at page 3 already, and I'm still not done. XL saws to put on your fatty handles for your, they're not always X-Acto knives, right? I mean, XL makes a lot of those tools too. But I mean, even pliers, like needle nose pliers, I use those a lot for a lot of different things. The screwdriver set, more chisels and different saws. Let's see here. Replacement blades. You guys always need replacement blades. I got every one of them here. Number 1, number 2, and then different size parts. There's a scale here. Now, having a scale on a range box, I think, is a cool thing, especially if you're trying to weigh any type of black powder, or if you're even just wanting to get a small weight, like on a low power rocket. They have a scale here for under $20 that goes to 0.01 grams, guys. That's crazy. Nice. Right.
No, yeah. Because I use a scale for the TARC. That's in our range box. But 0.1 grams,
one for your range box. Yeah, there's one here for under $20 that goes that fine. I mean, just, and like I said, just doing black powder for ejection charges, or even just, you want to make sure that what they sent you in your motor is enough, and you need some more. Well, now you can weigh it. So
when I make my 12 gram ejection charges,
12 grams is pretty cool. But yeah, I mean, tons of custom rockets. I mean, like I said, I think every custom rocket they have, except for 2 of them, is on sale. So thank you, Rockets, for your special. I'll be putting in order.
And don't forget about the Jeff Cody's design parachute they've got too.
You're right. So yeah, Jeff was one of the designers for some of the Flash and a few other things for eRockets. Jeff's very missed, and so yeah, go get that commemorative chute that he designed too. That'd be great. Thank you for mentioning. It's pretty
cool. It's got like templates on there for you to cut out different sizes out of it for different sized rockets and stuff. So yeah, check that out. The Jeff Cody's design parachutes at eRockets.biz. And there are also plenty of other rocketry items to choose from, such as educational rocket kits and supplies, air rockets, water rockets, and so much more. eRockets.biz certainly has enough kits and supplies to keep you busy in your workshop for a long time to come. Need parts for your own custom builds? No problem. eRockets.biz also supplies the Semrock lines of airframes, nose cones, centering rings, motor mounts, and so much more. eRockets has more rocket parts available than anyone else on Earth. So check out eRockets.biz today to learn more. eRockets.biz. If rocketry scares you, buy a train set.
Hey, all you rocket geeks out there. Do you like doing in-flight videos of your flights? And do you ever use those keychain cams and unfortunately sometimes only get videos of your thumb? Hey, this is Gene from The Rocketry Show, and that used to happen to me. I used to use those old keychain cams only to get nothing very good quality. But I found a solution to that, and it's Insane Rockets. It's an app that's available on the Google Play Store for Nexus 5X and higher. Now get this, it does 4K video. But not only that, it'll upload it automatically to the cloud and provide you real-time telemetry while tracking your rocket through Google Earth. It is amazing. Available on the Google Play Store, Insane Rockets app. It's crazy. No, wait. It's insane.
North Coast Rocketry, established in 1984, is the company that practically invented the class of rockets known today as mid-power. North Coast Rocketry takes advantage of over 30 years of high-power experience by a world-class rocketeer. North Coast Rocketry features a wide range of unique kits to expand your personal high-power rocket fleet. When you see an NCR rocket fly, you will encounter an absolute treat of sight, sound, and performance. Once you own and fly a North Coast Rocketry kit, your rocketry hobby will never be the same, and neither will your rocket fleet. In addition to great kits, North Coast Rocketry also stocks lots of must-have items and accessories for every Rocketeer's workshop. Go to northcoastrocketry.com today to find out more about these kits and other great products. northcoastrocketry.com. Advanced rockets that are easy to build, fun to fly, and look great on display. Welcome back to The Rocketry Show at TheRocketryShow.com. We're talking to an old friend of the show, Greg Young, and he's going over some stuff that he's learned about concerning whether or not you really can fly to the full waiver that you're able to get over your field. And it turns out it's not as straightforward as it might seem at first blush. And there are a lot of gotchas. And so I think we're about to go through some of the gotchas that you are discovering here. I think you mentioned getting back to stuff about places that the public has access to, roadways, et cetera, and I'm sure you've got much more than that, but that's one of the things that I picked up that you're going to get back to. So let's pick up where we left off.
Okay. All right. So where I left off was we knew we were going to be getting a letter from the Tripoli Rocketry Association asking us for some clarification on our field and the waiver. And about 6 weeks or so after the holiday, we did get the letter. I shared it with the board of directors. And the letter basically said, well, based on their calculations, what they saw is it appeared as though there was an inhabited structure, 1,300 some odd feet away from launch operations. And they said, you may have explanations for this, it may be waived. We'd like to hear back from you on it. Yep. The board met, and they then called me to a subsequent meeting because I wasn't on the board at that time. And I went through everything. I explained. There was at first concerns that was this particular club being singled out, and I said absolutely not at all. And in fact, I had conversations, and I had to say TRA was extremely helpful. They went over backwards, explained the situation, and they put it succinctly. They said, look, if something had ever happened, it said with the existing waiver you had, and an adjuster would come in, say there was damage to a vehicle or significant property damage or whatever, and you were in violation of the FAR, the coverage would be denied, and it would fall on you as the waiver holder, RSO, whatever. It would fall on the flyer, and of course the club would be looped in because everyone would be looped in if there was litigation. That's not unusual. So, with that in mind, the club made a couple of decisions. One was they felt that at this point there really wasn't a desire on their end. The board, this is the board now, to continue with the prefecture. So we surrendered the prefecture. I sent that in, and that they were going to make determinations on the waiver height. And I said, guys, it's black and white. And I showed them at the board meeting on Google Earth. I said you can get 8,000 feet if you move out near the beyond the grass area into right adjacent to vegetation. You could still get that, but if you go any farther out, you're still going to be faced with the highway and other things.
Yeah.
So you're really going to be capped at about 8,000 rather than 12. And of course, that people weren't happy with it, but it is what it is.
Right.
I did hear back from AAA that if they could not, they said their insurance, and it's the same with NAR because they work hand in hand with NAR on safety issues. They made it very clear that for a commercial entity like a hotel, motel, or bed and breakfast, you couldn't get a waiver signed by the owner of the establishment because you'd have to get waivers from all the individuals that would be staying there, and that's just not practical and not doable. But if it was a private dwelling and the homeowners were willing to sign, if you will, permission, it would have to be done annually. It would have to be done on a form that would be sent in then to TRA to be reviewed to make sure it met all the requirements. They could be considered as then affiliated with the launch, and the launch could continue to, maintain the normal operations with the waiver that the FAA allows. But that would require an annual submission to ensure that the homeowners, both homeowners, were comfortable with that. Now, in our particular case, we couldn't do it because it's a bed and breakfast. And as it turns out, the parcel of land that the bed and breakfast on, although they're related to the landowner, it's a separate parcel, totally separate. So, and they've never signed a waiver. So that couldn't work out for us. So at that point, I called the FAA because that was the next step. We had to do something because we couldn't continue on with the waiver that we had. Prefecture notwithstanding, the FARs are pretty clear. So I talked to them, and I talked to an individual that I've known there for a while, and I went over 101.25. She said she wasn't familiar with that section, but she'd get back to me. She got back to me a few hours later and basically said that 101.25 was added to the FARs, which is correct. She said, the way we issue waivers, she goes, we're AirTech. She goes, we're only concerned with once something's up in the air. She said, ground issues we do not deal with, we do not enforce. She goes, while those are important and while they're part of the FARs, that is not our responsibility. Our responsibility is to ensure that you don't represent a hazard to anything in the air. She said, that's it. So she said, you as a waiver holder are held responsible for ensuring that no one exceeds the waiver. She says, in the case you just explained to me with the situation you have, even though our waiver says 12,000 feet, you would be responsible for ensuring no one goes over 6,000 or 8,000. She said,
individually responsible. Let's just make that clear. Individually responsible.
Very clear. I said, well, here's my option. I said, it's simple. I said, we're in the middle of a 2-year cycle. You granted me a 2-year waiver, which she did everyone. I said, let's just change it. We'll drop it down to 8,000 feet. She goes, no, we won't change anything in the middle of a cycle. I go, it's just paperwork. I said, I can't be there at every launch. I says, and I can appoint people. I said, but I just can't. I says, and she says, sure, you signed the waiver. You've assumed the liability. If you can't be there, then you shouldn't hold the waiver. I said, so you're saying I should drop the waiver? No, I'm not giving you any advice. She said, you do what you feel is best. I said, let me ask a question. If I drop the waiver, if I send you a note, I said, can the club then apply for a new waiver at a different altitude? She goes, oh, yes. There's no issue on that. I said, can you expedite it for me? She says, why would we need to expedite? I said, well, we have a launch coming up in a couple of months. And I says, I know how long the waiver would ordinarily take. She goes, I think we can work with you. Okay. So I reached out to one of the officers of the club. Actually, the vice president said, I need to get out of the situation I'm in as waiver holder. I said, we need to get someone new. We need to get a new waiver. And we need to have this done soon because I don't want to impact our upcoming launch. Yeah. And so that's how it went. And I spent an hour and a half with my successor and explained the situation to him. And he he invested in a laser sighting device. So he's going to make sure he's nowhere near any structure, and he'll be able to go to the nearest foot, and he'll ensure that they're at least 1,500 foot away from the nearest. And when they're flying to 6,000, when they're flying to 8, he'll make sure they're 2,000 feet away from those pads.
Okay.
So that will work. So I was a little disappointed that we had to go through all of this, and I had to give it up, and the club had to reapply because they just wouldn't simply make a change. But I do understand government. I understand there's a certain amount of things that are done a certain way that sometimes you just can't change. It's like they say, you can't fight City Hall. So I think the option worked out best for the group.
Wow, that's a heck of a story.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing that I find most unusual is the fact of you as the waiver holder being personally responsible in the eyes of the FAA. So if anything happened, God forbid, thank God it didn't, but if anything happened, you, not the organization, you would be responsible.
And the flyer that violated. Now, the kicker is, at the club I mentioned, think about it, we were flying from 2016 to 2022, less than the distance we should have. So given it was less than the minimum distance, that means every high-power flight violated the law.
Yeah.
Had there been an issue, that would have come to light, I'm quite sure, and we would have been left holding a bit of a bag, to say the least. So luckily, nothing ever happened, fortunately for us. So I really felt that I wanted to share this with folks so that flyers need to know this. You need to make sure that the field you fly at, I mean, you're not on the board, you're not the waiver holder, but you need to ensure that you're flying safely, and you need to understand that the 101.25 on those distances apply to you as a flyer, not just the waiver holder. So the two of you are the ones that literally are responsible for safe operations.
Right. And that's really important because most flyers, I mean, at least as I have understood it in the past, going out to a launch, if anything happens, it's covered by insurance. That's usually their first thought as a flyer. But knowing this will make me a little bit more succinct in looking at those distances and making sure, because if as a flyer, I'm going to be held responsible, which kind of I can understand. Makes sense. I built the rocket, I'm going to fly it, blah, blah, blah. But to be personally responsible, I always thought there was some kind of vague, nebulous blanket insurance that would take care of everything. I mean, what do I know, right?
Well, Gene, there is, if you're not violating any of the FARs, you are covered by NAR or EEE, whichever launches.
If you're covered.
Yeah, but if you violate one of these, it's considered gross negligence, and they won't cover you.
And I wouldn't, as a flyer, if that was happening at a club and I didn't know, and something happened, I end up being screwed, over for something that I didn't know anything about, but under gross negligence. So it's kind of weird. It's like I never thought of this before, and going forward, I think I'm going to keep a little bit of an eye on stuff to see, okay, what's okay. We all want 20,000 foot waivers, but could this field support a 20,000 foot waiver? You got to think about this stuff. So,
I feel bad because again, I didn't know anything about the inhabited dwelling being there. I mean, I knew there was a dwelling, but and I think about it and here, for 6 years, and obviously some people did know about it. I didn't, and when you're talking to the FAA, and it's like you didn't know about it. It's like, no, it's in the near. I go there to lunch. I don't go way in the back off a side road beyond some trees for an old farmhouse. I had no idea. So it was a humbling experience, and I've been flying a long time. So we're always learning, and you're never too old to be humbled. Let me tell you.
Absolutely.
And that's one of the reasons why, when I was hearing about this, it's like, ooh, this is a big topic. We should make sure that we get this out there. So, clubs and people flying rockets are aware of all this and can truly feel, what's the word I'm looking for?
Reassured?
Reassured that they're doing things the right way and that they really are covered, because...
Well, I can tell you this did involve a large number of, a fair amount of letters went out to a lot of clubs. So they're all, they are looking at it. Now, and I am assuming, now this is on the Tripoli side. I don't know if NARA's done anything like that or if they're going to now or how that's working, but NARA's aware of it. I know that for a fact. So I'm sure there'll be some, looking into it from the NAR side as well. For the NAR only clubs.
I'm sure. I mean, this is a big topic, and you just have to make sure that everyone truly is covered and are flying in the safest way and safest manner possible. So
and I believe that I've known there's been a lot of real hands across the table stuff going on with NAR and Tripoli these days. So I believe that. They're writing the tests together, I believe, certification tests and doing all the insurance stuff. So I feel good that, that both organizations are looking into this.
And they have representatives on the National Fire Protection Association too, right? So Trip Barber's on there and some of the others are on there too. So we're in there pretty good, and everyone is concerned, with safety to make sure that we fly safely so we don't lose anything because, the drones with all they've done have made it tough for some of the, AMA folks. And it's kind of opened the eyes again, of some of the regulators. And you really hate to do that. You really want to keep things under the radar by not breaking any rules intentionally or even non-intentionally. And it's not a hard thing to do, but I think the most of the fields that are impacted are going to be East Coast, where there's a lot of development going on. Fields are getting smaller, and buildings are going up on adjacent parcels, and who knows what they are. So, and that's what Tripoli was wrestling with: are these actually inhabited? They can't always tell. Although with what they're doing, they've been able to find out, I think, a fair amount. I think once you find the coordinates now, you can pretty much determine whether it's a private dwelling or not with all the stuff that's out there via the net. So, but I think it's more, out west, when you got miles of desert, that's one thing. But on the East Coast, it's getting tougher. And so I think some fields, at least 3 I know that are lowering their waivers because of, adjacent structures.
That's interesting stuff. And it's good to be aware of, I'd rather go 4,000 feet than be at risk for 8,000 for something,
Well, what my wife said, when my highest was at another field I fly at now was about 14,000 some odd feet, and it was a 12-foot rocket, and it, vanished long before that. She goes, "Why did you go that high?" I said, "Well, I wanted to go high once, break Mach once. Now I'll go back to flying it with just M's or something." I said, no more N's or anything bigger than that, because you really don't see it. Unless you're an altitude junkie. If you're an altitude junkie, go out west. Go where they got, 52,000 and 110,000 foot waivers.
I'm with you, Greg. I really am. I guess I'm an East Coast flyer because I don't mind going low because I do like to watch the whole flight. I like to see the apogee happen. I like to see the events going on. That's just me.
I do too.
It's just funny.
That's the basis behind some of the stuff I'm working on with electronics to at least get some data back from the rockets. Because even if you're going, less than a mile up, depending on how the rocket is, like I have a skinny rocket that can easily do close to a mile. But before you even get there, you just don't see it anymore. It just vanishes. So it's nice to, it'd be nice to have some telemetry coming back or something where you can, at least get some GPS coordinates, where it is over the ground the last time
it's a live ping.
Contact it. Yeah. Yeah. And you can find it. That's really my big thing is when you can't see it, it's easy to lose it because, you can, if you don't know where to look, it can come down behind you and you're looking forward thinking it's going to be over there somewhere. Which happened to me, but so, yeah.
I'm just glad all this stuff happened without any problem making it very visible. You know what I mean?
Yes. It's better that it's happening this way. Yeah, I agree. Better this way than some tragedy, to fall.
Well, that's what Tripoli's been doing. They're taking a preemptive active role on this because there have been some, close calls elsewhere. And it kind of, when you see one, you say, okay, we got to take a look at things. What's going on out there? And it's more and more people are moving out of city areas, and we see building structures going up all over the place. So it's going to be more and more of an issue, and fields are getting tougher and tougher, and we can't afford to lose a field.
Yeah,
Indeed.
absolutely. I agree with you 100%.
So, yes, great topic and great thing to keep in mind. And thanks for sharing all this with us, Greg, and to the rocketry community in general.
You're welcome. I'm glad. I'm glad it was resolved without, as you said, any issues, because it could have been. I mean, given the number of years we were flying that way, there could have been an issue that we would have encountered, and we would have only found out when the insurance carrier, whether it be NAR or TRA, said, "Oh no, we're not. You violated a federal law. We are not going to cover you. You're on your own." So that that could be that would have been devastating had that happened. Luckily, it
indeed, and indeed is again.
And boy, when you keep your eyes on the skies, you keep your eyes on the field too, right?
Yeah. And I want to point out real quick, as we were winding down, that you mentioned that the FAA, they're not concerned with anything on the ground. And that's true. I mean, their jurisdiction starts, 450 feet in the air. And that's where FAA takes over. Anything below that, they don't really, concern themselves with.
But it's part of their FARs, which is that, and I could tell, reading between the lines, they weren't necessarily happy to have this included.
Yeah.
But, it's there, and they don't enforce it. They just say, you got to enforce it. And it's like, well, then you ought to make sure. And I told her, maybe make sure your waiver holders are well aware of this, because, I talked to flyers about it, and they look at me like I had three eyes. It's like, we don't know anything about this. I said, well, you're a level 2 or level, you've gone through your level 2 exam. I mean, or you're level 3, you've been flying a while. We have to know about this stuff. So you got to keep track of this.
What would be nice is if there's something in the formal waiver stuff that whatever it is you might get that shows that you've got the waiver, where it says, okay, you're good for here, but it's on you to make sure everything is good to go on the ground here, Mr. Waiver Holder.
Well, they do scare you when you look at what's on there. I won't go into all of that. But you basically say, you're carrying, and as she said, you're carrying the bullseye on your back. And I said, yeah, I'm aware of that. And I don't mind carrying it when I know I'm not violating any laws.
Yeah.
I'm fine with that. Because, even if you unintentionally violate something, it's still a violation, right?
Still on you. Yep.
Yep. So.
All righty. Well, thanks again for that.
You're welcome. I hope this helps.
Cool.
And it wasn't designed to scare anybody, but I'm hoping to raise the awareness. And I do know that Bob Brown, who's the president of Tripoli, is going to be at LDRS, and he's going to do the TRA Tech. It's like their technical sessions. His session is going to be entirely on 101.25, because the Tripoli's board feels, after going through this review, it's a big deal.
It is.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's a very big deal.
Good to know they're on it. So,
Yes.
Now we are.
We'll have more of the show right after this. It's time for Serious Rocketry. Serious Rocketry since 1998, providing the Rocketeer with great kits, motors, supplies, and more. They have lots of products in their ever-growing web store with fast shipping, wide selection, and courteous service. You can also check out the amazing and popular Serious Rocketry kits that harken back to the days of fun-to-build detailed kits that are more than just 3 fins and a nose cone. And, Gene, what did you find from there?
Well, there's always so much good stuff here. But I'm going to go to one of Serious Rocketry's own kits that is probably one of my favorite Serious Rocketry kits. It's the Eradicator. It's a complicated, scale missile type design. So, of course, it harkens back to the Archer. It's got 2 separate size body tubes, and it's got a lot of details in it for your strakes, and the way that the outside has rings around it, so it does whistle when it goes up. I know, because I have one. And the beauty about this rocket, it's a transition kit is what they call, and it can be flown on model rocket motors, but it can also be flown on high power motors. So it's kind of a nice trend. That's why they call it a transition, because as you take your journey into high power, you could start here and get the feel for the rocket on a G motor or an F motor, and then as you go into an H motor, it certainly would be able to handle that. And I built one, and I love flying mine on actually on an F-67, because it doesn't go too high, but boy, is it a cool flight to see. And I have thrown it on an H-128 once. That was pretty cool. That was an awesome flight. So the Eradicator has many features that make it fun and easy to build, and it's great to fly. It's got the heavy wall body tube, so it can stand up to some decent high-power impulse. It's got precision laser-cut aircraft plywood fins and centering rings, of course. The strakes on the fin configuration is really cool. It's got a couple of rings that go around the fin can a little bit, so that gives you your whistle. Tons of decals. Like you get 2 full color sheets on that. I haven't even finished my decals because I've been flying mine just painted. But one of these days, I'm going to do it. I'm going to put those decals on. I swear, I really am. So it's got the durable ripstop nylon parachute from Top Flight Recovery, and I love those parachutes, so I'm all in. And you get the 400-pound Test Kevlar shock cord mount and a little bit of elastic to soften the stress. So it comes with a detailed instruction book, and it is one of my favorite Serious Rocketry kits. It's impressive on the range. It's a decent size. It's 45 inches long, diameter of 3 inches for the big tube. Weighs maybe 18 ounces, depending on how you finish it. But it's just and it has a really nice 30-inch diameter, perfect flight ripstop nylon. So it's very cool stuff. Anyway, so that's the rocket that I love because it's a neat rocket to fly. You can do it as a park flyer, but you can also go high power. If you put an H in that thing, you're going a few thousand feet on it. So just make sure you watch where you're going or do use your Marco Polo or whatever tracking device to keep an eye on it. But it will certainly fly, and it always impresses with straight flights because the strakes and the rings that go around it also seem to stabilize the flight. So every flight I've had on mine has been straight up perfectly, and I've had it in different wind conditions every time. So anyway, that is my thing for the week, the Serious Rocketry Eradicator, the 29 millimeter motor mount. Obviously, I didn't mention that, but I just did. So, and it's right now it's on sale for $85.95. So go to Serious Rocketry and get yourself one.
I think Jim's holding back his feelings about that rocket. Serious Rocketry's website features real-time stock tracking, which lets you order with confidence from their online store. No having to call or write to see if something is really in stock. And when you're ready to fly, Serious Rocketry has motors and hardware in stock from Estes through Aerotech High Power, as well as popular electronics from Jolly Logic and more. Be sure to ask them about their club specials as well. You can visit their websites today at SIRIUSrocketry.biz and .com. Serious Rocketry for the serious rocketeer. Lock Precision Rocketry manufactures a full line of high-quality precision-fit electronic bays, motor mount adapters, recovery hardware, and harnesses, all designed to meet your building, repairing, and customizing needs. Lock Precision believes in making rocket kits as light as possible while maintaining the strength required to fly with commercially available motors. When you visit lockprecision.com, be sure to also check out their wide range of rockets, such as the 4-inch Mystic Buzz, the 4-inch Lock Goblin featuring multiple motor mount adapters for 29 and 38 millimeter motors. If you're looking to gain entry into high-power rocketry, then you can certify for your Level 1 in style using the Lock 4 rocket kit. Lock features rocket kits for all flyers ranging from entry-level builders to experts. The name Lock Precision has been synonymous with mid and high-power rocketry for over 30 years. Check out lockprecision.com today to find out why. Find your airspace with lockprecision.com and Public Missiles Limited. That was a great interview with Greg Young, and a great topic on as far as knowing if you're really ready to use your full waiver.
Well, I think it's important that everybody just kind of, just think about that the next time you're out on a field, no matter where you are, because we all go to different places, different clubs to launch stuff. And, and you don't want to deal with any of that stuff. You just want to fly, but just keep an extra eye open, I would say. Yeah,
and it's very important, especially if your club has been using the same location since before 2016, before right? That rule went in. Yep. And it's funny because or right around that time, I think our local club, which hasn't had a high power field in a while, they've been looking around for it. And the first I heard about that was from Wolf from our club. And they were looking at potential locations, and everyone's like, oh, that looks fine. It looks great. And Wolf was the one that brought up, hey, well, there's a road right there. We can't do that. And everyone's like, oh, man, come on.
Right.
And Wolf, or there's a structure over here. And that was the first time I heard about that whole thing. And apparently a lot of folks are in the same boat. So if just keep your eyes peeled wherever you're flying your high power rocket launches. Kind of look and scope around. Make sure nothing new has gone up as far as structures and roads or anything where the public generally hangs out. That could impact your using your full waiver. So important stuff right there. Jesse is back with us. He had to do some work stuff, so he wasn't able to sit in on that interview with Greg. But you're back from NSL West, aren't you?
Yeah, that occurred a couple weeks back, and it was pretty grand time. The mornings worked out to be able to fly every day, but on a Friday was mainly like a setup day. There weren't any flights done that day, and then it got super windy in the afternoon. Saturday was a fantastic day in the morning. About 11 o'clock, it started getting super windy. But by then, they had done a lot of stuff already. And, they were active, since 8 a.m. So, I don't know exactly what the number of the flights were. But, I mean, they were just, kicking them off one after another. There was quite a few rockets that had went up that went well over 30K for, an R event. It's pretty unreal in my opinion. I mean, I just don't ever see rockets go that high during an R event because, they had a 52,000-foot waiver. So I don't know if you want me to mention a couple of those flights. I have some details on a couple.
Yeah, give us some details.
Cool. Yeah.
So I think one of the coolest ones that we were looking forward to was a collaboration from Ball Aerospace and ULA. And we had a few mentors, mainly Jesse Nifinagar and Juan Cedillo. They were working with some of the students to test a camera system for their intern payloads. Being the 15th year of, the Ball and ULA collaborating on student launch programs, they wanted to build a rocket, that was able to fly faster and higher than their typical, intern rockets that they usually fly during the summer. And from what I understand, they're going to do another one of those on a few O motors, I believe in July or maybe early August. I'll give you guys more details on that when they do that launch.
Cool.
But they were doing more like a test bed, and they built a fiberglass airframe rocket with some carbon fiber fins that were made from Tim and folks at Wildman. They wound up flying an O-3400 in this rocket, which I want to say is about 6 inches in diameter. Hopefully they can correct me if I'm wrong on that. But this rocket hit 33,400 feet.
Wow.
This
Nice.
rocket went Mach 2.25.
Whoa.
Nice.
This is crazy. For a Colorado event, we don't see a lot of flights like that. I mean,
Nobody does. Wow.
Conway, had mentioned, a couple of years back, since 2021 that he was able to, when he got back, he got his, footing back. We've had some big flights over at our north site, but never this far down south in Colorado. That was pretty cool. I believe that flight was actually done on Saturday. And then, speaking of Conway, he actually had a really good flight too. So let me think here. If I'm not mistaken, and Conway, please correct me if I'm wrong, he had a Mac Performance body. And I believe this was a custom-made rocket that, we got from Mike Krupe. And, you guys remember Mike from some of the episodes, from episode last season that we had with him. So Conway was taking the opportunity of the size of that waiver and being able to fly something down at NSL. He handed me this rocket as he's walking into his hotel room because I went to go meet them for dinner, right? So he hands me this thing in a blanket. I'm like, oh gosh, what's this? And I feel it and it's like, what is this? And I thought it was like a motor casing, right? No, guys. That was his... No, guys. Start over.
Still choked up about it.
Yeah. That was his rocket in this, blanket that he handed me. So, just a quick amount of details here. He was going for the K record for Tripoli.
Ooh.
And let's see here. This rocket, he named it Slim Shady. That's
okay.
Cool.
Yep.
It was pretty slim. I think it was, if I was not mistaken, it was a K250 and it was a 2.1 inch diameter rocket, like just a 54 mil minimum diameter. So that was pretty cool. This rocket, burnout weight was 40 ounces. The weight with the motor was 6 pounds, 8 ounces. Like I said, it's not very heavy whatsoever. 31,374 feet. So he almost did it.
Oh, so close. 32 is the record you said, right? Something like that?
Well, I want to say so. He was maybe about 600 feet shy.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm just saying, that's pretty impressive for, flying on a day where the winds aloft, kind of maybe pushed it, So, Conway's, 7 flights in, I think, for this show already. He's averaging just right around 29K per flight.
Wow.
That's pretty impressive for a single flyer to do. So, congratulations, Conway, on your efforts. Conway, thanks a lot for your help, that you've given us here at the Rocketry Show and other Rocketeers too. I mean, a lot of people have been going to Conway for suggestions on some of their projects and help. And, Conway's a guy about tough love, but I tell you what, I mean, the mentorship and the help he gives you is very credible. So, if you guys have any questions for Conway, just hit him up on Facebook Messenger and he'll help you guys out. He's very, very knowledgeable. And most of the stuff he tells you, I'm going to say, 97% works. Pretty good track record, right?
Sure.
So,
Yes.
Another flight that I wanted to mention, guys, and, I get into the flights right away because you're just talking about that 52,000 foot waiver. You hear me talk a lot about Jason Chamberlain. Jason flew a 2-stage, and it was a Wildman booster with a Wildman sustainer. I think he did a tremendous job. I mean, he actually got the output on the RRC3 to work. I mean,
Nice.
I don't know a lot of people who've been able to successfully, get that portion of the electronics on an RRC3 working. Not saying that it doesn't work, just saying that a lot of people just go to like a simple timer or something in nature. But no, he actually got that output to work, and it was able to to fire the second stage. And when it fired, I mean, he got well over 30,000 foot as well. He nearly hit 40. I'm not exactly sure what the details are, or what the diameter of the rocket was. I'm not sure the motors. It was 2 M's. It was a Loki M kicked up to a Aerotech M650, I want to say. Please don't quote me on that. I'll get more details. Maybe we can share that later. Or maybe we can even pull in Jason for another episode. I mean, we haven't talked to him since episode 69. So, yeah, tons of fun.
Just to reiterate, quick question about the RC. That was the actual timer to not only the dual deploy altimeter, but also a timer to get the second stage working. Is that correct?
Yeah. So the RRC3, how it has that other separate channel output, and it has the ability to do timing. Yeah, that's what he wound up using.
That's cool because that's just for our listeners out there that there are several different outputs that you can use on those. But as Jesse as you mentioned, it's you don't know many people that use them. They just usually use straight timers. I usually use timers too, but I didn't know that. I've always been nervous to try that, to do it. But I'm glad he did. That's awesome.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah, I mean, being able to work with other Rocketeers and, help them with all their certifications like Jason does. He's been really busy since he became an L3CC and a TAP, that he's doing, verifications and certifications for tons of college students, tons of individual flyers. He's, one of the go-to people here in Colorado now. Him and James Russell and Art Hogue and, Mark and a few other people that have the ability to certify for L3. But Jason's just been really busy in the last couple of years. And the fact that he took the time out, I understand that his wife, Jen, she's also the president of the club in Pueblo, where a huge event is going to happen next year. Just little news I can't publicly quite share yet. But yeah, apparently there's going to be a huge NAR event held in Pueblo at SCORE next year. Keep your eyes open, keep your ears open for that one. But anyway, his wife's the president of the club, and I understand that she was like telling people, nope, this is your police line. You cannot pass here. Do not ask Jason any questions. Go away. She had to give him some time to breathe a little bit and get his stuff up. And, the guy, if he has any nerves at all, he would never be able to tell. And she said, obviously he was heckin' nervous. And, I mean, we could all imagine being that nervous with that much money on a launch pad, right? Yeah. But, when I'm going over there and like standing by him, looking at him, he's just happy as heck to talk to you and, hang out. And, Jason, once again, with Conway and James Russ and all these senior flyers that we have in Colorado, they're really helpful, really good to get you guys on your way. So if you're in this area and you need some help, make sure you hit those guys up. So,
cool.
Yeah, fun stuff. A couple of things about NSL before I let you all go. Chris Short took his huge trailer. I mean, I think it was maybe like 140 feet, or maybe 220 feet. Like, this trailer was huge. I mean, I just cannot believe the amount of axles, how long this thing was, bolt onto the back. His, Ram 3500 was able to pull it. He brought it all the way from Georgia to NSL to hang out with us. Our friend Charlie Savoy, who lives in Utah, came out and helped Chris at his booth. So you guys got to see Charlie Savoy there in Colorado. That's a big deal too, at least to me, right? His buddy Kendall from Florida came out with him as well and traveled with him. So got to see literally people all the way from across the nation, even just hanging out at Chris's trailer. Chris had tons of stuff, guys. I mean, he had just
he always does. He
just got a CTI order in Denver like the day before and checked it all in before NSL started. And Man,
Nice.
I got to tell you, it was that trailer itself was huge. He's going to be using it at all these other events that he goes to. Those of you that go to Airfest will see it there, and a couple other events too. So keep.
I love how organized that trailer is when you walk inside. Things like everything is in all neat bins and everything's organized. Yes. I love going in that. Every time that I see the trailer, I got a smile on my face.
Well, you know how he always had a tent too, right? So he has a trailer and then he has the tent like out with the tables. I don't even think he had to put that out.
No, probably not.
I don't think you had to put the tent out because the trailer was so huge. People would just go and get out of the sun and the wind and accommodate themselves there and hang out and buy stuff. And I think he literally had every motor imaginable that you can purchase right now. If it's on sale at some website other than his, I think you could get it from him. I mean, he just
had
he's got everything. Yeah, it was fantastic. I can't wait for you to see it, guys.
His Loki selection's really good if you're into that. He's got some really nice Loki.
Some bad news, and I just found this out at NSL. Unfortunately, Chris is no longer a Loki dealer.
Oh.
Yeah. So if you want some Loki stuff, you can go to Bob Brown from Mile High Rocketry or Teddy over at One Bag Hot Recovery. He has a lot of Loki stuff, but unfortunately, Chris no longer has the ability to sell Loki, and that's okay because, like I said, he still has every other.
Oh yeah. Well, nice. I'm glad that the CTI stuff he always had a full stock of that because it's been a couple of years and CTI was like hard to get.
Yeah.
So I'm really glad to hear that the CTI stock is up and running. So for people that want to do L3, it could be a great choice of motors between that and Aerotech. I personally am an Aerotech guy, but I love the CTI propellants. They seem to be a little bit punchier than Aerotech in my mind. But
yeah, those pink motors are really showstoppers, man. Like every time I see a pink motor, I just flip out because I can't believe how the propellant that thing produces, or the output that propellant produces, is just amazing. It's eye-opening and jaw-dropping.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So there's a lot of other detail about NSL. If obviously I just did a really short overview here. If any of you that attended the event have any notes or anything you want us to share, mailback at TheRocketryShow.com. Send us a note and we'll mention it, especially if it's something that is pretty important that we forgot. I mean, we want everybody to be happy, being able to go to a huge event like that. So.
Yes, and we're kind of like shoveling all this in at the end of the show here anyway. So, but real quick,
wait, CG. Ed has something very specific that he asked for me to ask you to do. He wants you to say, "In a word."
Okay, I'll close out the show with that.
Perfect.
But I do want to get to real quick though because we have a lot. The NSL East was announced between the last time and that last show and now, and that's going to be in Indiana Rocket Society, Section 711, and that's going to be over there. Let's see here, near Pence, Indiana, off County Road North. 1000 West in Warren County. So anyway, that 17,999 foot MSL waiver. And it's going to be a lot of fun. They have hotels nearby in Danville, Illinois, which is about 20 miles away. And the details will be announced on the NAR website soon. So keep an eye on the NAR website for that. As far as more details too, I just did a quick run through since we are kind of trying to shovel in a lot of things. We've been neglecting the mailbag, not on purpose. It's just been a lot going on, and we have, but the shows have been, there's been a lot going on, so the shows have been kind of like delayed a lot, and so we've got a huge backlog. And let's see here,
I don't see it.
It's if you scroll down below the NSL East announced, there's a mailbag. There's a little horizontal line.
Yeah, Dave Simmons. Got it. Hey.
Yeah.
Hi, Dave. I found you, Dave. Okay. I'll just read it out verbatim. Hi, the Rocket Show gang. Back in 2018, you guys answered one of my questions about cleaning and maintaining reloadable motors. It was a great tip on the baby wipes. Been flying countless Aerotech reloads since then and branched out into Loki and CTI as well as I continue my bar journey into high power. Well, that's really cool. Awesome. I'd like to add one piece of advice on there when reloading motors. Don't take a cell call when building a motor. I was just about done loading a motor at the end of the field when the wife called, got back to the motor and loaded it into the rocket. Uh-oh, this doesn't sound good. It launched great. Then at apogee, it arced over, and I waited for an event that never happened. Ugh, I hate that. That sinking feeling of a lawn dart coming.
Yes.
Came in whistling hot ballistic into a wet swamp with chest-high sawgrass. As soon as it impacted, I knew exactly what happened. I never loaded the ejection charge. Made it back to my range box, and sure enough, the red container with the charge was sitting on the top tray. And I was able to feed the rocket-hungry swamp with a shoot release and a 2440 motor case as well. So don't get distracted while building a motor. This is a $200 plus mistake that could have easily been avoided. Still had fun at the launch, though, but really confident in this Marco Polar tracker now that I got one to work out over the weekend, and it worked like a charm. Awesome. Happy Thanksgiving, guys. Well, and to you.
Yeah.
And thanks for some great shows lately. Proud fan and patron Dave Simmons, President, NAR, Section 876. Wow.
Thank you, Dave.
Yes.
That's really
Great
nice,
advice.
David. And I'm so glad that you used the baby wipes thing and the Marco Polo tracker, which is, I love the thing. It's so simple. I don't have to plug it into a computer. I just turn it on and point it. And that's what I love about the Marco Polo. So I'm glad you're doing that. And hopefully you've had some good flights since then and your shoot release is up and running and you're having some good time as you do your bar approaching your level 1. So thank you.
Yes. Thanks for that. All righty. Let's see here. Any other lingering items that we've got to address here real quick before we head on out of here?
I think we got it all.
Yeah, I think we managed to cram it all in there, so that's pretty cool. Go ahead.
I was going to say one quick point. I am going to be going to Huntsville, Alabama, to get trained at NASA as an SLI teacher for my team.
Nice.
So I'll give details about that and what my experience is. I don't really know what. Isn't that cool? I don't know what's going to happen, how it's going to happen, but all I know is Huntsville, NASA, me there. So
excited. Yes.
Yes.
Congratulations, Jim. Seriously,
Yeah.
that's cool stuff, dude.
Oh,
I
thanks.
can't wait to hear you talk about this.
Oh, yeah. And it's all because of Tark. That's what is leading me to Huntsville. So I love Tark. Great contest. The kids love it. So I'm happy.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
All right. So as we head on out of here, let's thank a bunch of patrons here real quick. So let's see here. I think I'll start with this one here. We'll give our thanks to these patrons here who have helped out the show. You really helped out a lot, especially in our downtime while we were all busy with life and the shows were just kind of sporadic at best. And but that helped keep all the websites and everything alive. So thank you so much to the following patrons: Todd West, Jonah Cheney, also Matt Tudor, and Joseph Petro, Les Rayburn, Steven Spencer, Bill Cook, Jason Cook, Gary Rosenfield, Greg Ziegler, Ken Blade, Eric Hamilton, John Beans, Scott Holla, Guy Wadsworth, Phil P., Tom Rum, Stephen Ray, Amanda Ho, Steve Sainer, Mark, railbuttons.com, and Philip Kelly, EvertonRocketry.com, High Tech Rednet Rocketry, HTRR, Stacy Worley, thanks. So take next bunch here, somebody.
Okay, I guess moving on. Jim Fields of Michiana Rocketry. Brett Nowaki. Thank you, Brett. New guy. Woohoo. Alan Wellington. And Alan, we're sorry we missed you the past couple shows, but you are not forgotten and you are still very much appreciated. So Alan Wellington, you get me to say your name one more time. Alan Wellington, Timothy Mock, Team Semrock. That's Trucker Jim Wilson, Phil Bridges, Roy Tyson, Gary Dow, Alan Wellington, Don Johnson, Pierre Marlowe, Jeff Curtis, John Bryan, Casey Anderson. Hi, Casey. Mark Entwistle, Norman Perkle, Jimmy Burgess, Paradise Rocketry, Jason O'Shelley, and I'm moving on to George Rocker, JohnRocket.com, Jason Rodney, Conway Stevens, Paul Olivari, Sam Feinberg, John Sicker, Sean Falkingham, Brian Scheckenberger, and John Thompson. And that fills me out. So take it away, Jess.
All right. And our remaining list here, we have Mark McBride, C. McCauley, Rocket Lab Delta, Carl Hunting, Bryce and Nicole. I don't have new last names for you guys, but Bryce and Nicole, thank you so much.
That's what they wanted to be known as.
That's perfect. Piedmont Student Launch Team, thank you guys for your continued support. Mr. Chris Irving from Egg Timer, thank you so much. David Simmons, who we just talked about. And then, Scott Biner with SBR Rocketry at fusionrocket.biz. Thank you, Scott. John Kusher, Kelsey Black, Brian Reneker, Jerry Krause, Justin O'Neill. Thank you, guys. Mr. Terry Dancer from Skydancer Rocketry, Mike Krupe from Mac Performance Rocketry,
Yay.
and Brent Grassmick, who's going to be doing a level 3 soon. So that's going to be cool.
Oh, good luck.
Thank you so much, guys. We got cups coming for you. We haven't forgot. We're working on it.
Yes.
We're working
Yes,
on
we are. They're cool too. In a world where patrons support the show, we say thank you.
Well played.
On that note,
Keep your eyes in the skies.
alrighty, thanks, folks. We'll see you soon right here on The Rocketry Show at TheRocketryShow.com. Have a great one. Be safe.
Have a comment? We'd love to hear it. Send them to mailbag@TheRocketryShow.com. If you enjoyed what you heard, don't forget to check out our sister show, TheModelRocketShow.com. The Model Rocket Show is hosted by the Rocket Noob and is all about low to mid-power rocketry. TheModelRocketShow.com with Daniel, the Rocket Noob. Check it out today. The views and opinions expressed on these programs are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of Little Beth Entertainment or its sponsors.